Go live button. And we are live. Welcome to Worldwide Slot Car Chat number 164. I'm your host, Greg Gaub, and the gang is pretty much all here. We've got Tony and Mike and Russ and Dennis and Den and John and Gio and Don and Courtney and Martin and Wayne and Garth and Jim and other people. Let's talk slot cars. As always, we'll start with show and tell, so raise your virtual hand to participate in show and tell. I'm going to do a quick one, get my show and tell out of the way, because it should only take a moment. That's not the screen I want to look at. All right, so a couple of small but useful updates to the GNS tire grinder. The all plastic split pulley didn't work out as well as I'd hoped, but by changing the angle of where the screw goes in from 45 to 60, I'm able to stick a square nut in there, which provides plenty of holding strength to the axle. So those models are already up on printables if you want to download those. These will of course come with my kits and machines if you buy them off of me. But basically, stuff a square nut in there and use the same M3 set screw that I had before, and it works great.
Good.
What was happening, Greg? Was it stripping out?
Stripping out.
Yeah, it didn't have enough holding power, and if you tried to turn it more than finger tight, it would strip.
Yeah, the M3 has got a very fine thread. So
it does, yeah. So one of the things that I thought of was, well, I could change the screw to a coarser thread, but then I'd have to buy all new screws. So, so I had the hardware, and this provides even more holding power than a coarser thread would.
Mm-hmm.
It works great. And there's a pulley for 3/32 axles and 1/8 inch 3mm axles.
Okay.
The other change I made was through feedback from one of my kit customers. The previous design for adjusting or tramming the parallel between the sanding spindle and the axle was a screw like this, but the whole clamp mechanism was horizontal and the screw therefore was vertical, which worked because the car axle comes down on it from an angle kind of. So raising the spindle a little bit on one side did affect the tramming, so you could tram the spindle to the car axle. But for whatever reason, his kit that he put together himself required a little bit more than was reasonable to expect out of the vertical orientation. So he suggested angling it this way, but that required redesigning the entire leg and clamp system. But this works really well. Because you're basically going at where the wheels are coming onto the sanding surface. You're basically pushing the spindle in that direction rather than at an angle to where the wheels are hitting. That requires less adjustment of the screw to achieve more tramming effect, or to rather tram when it's really out of whack. Mm-hmm. So this, of course, after he tests it, I've tested it. This is a picture of mine. I've tested it. It worked really well. But his was in a case where it required a lot of tramming. So after he tests it, then I'll update the models on printables for people to download, and of course include these with my future kits. And if anybody who has already bought a kit or machine is unable to tram their sanding spindle completely with the current legs and clamping system, then I'll send you new legs free of charge. I also changed the clamping mechanism to have screws on both sides rather than kind of a little hinge on one side and a screw on the other side. The downside, of course, is that it requires removing 4 screws to swap the spindle out if you want to change sanding grits between, cutting versus polishing.
Big deal.
But I think it's not such a big deal, yeah. And depending on how much tramming is required, you could probably get by with just one screw under each of these. I tested that out just by leaving one screw out and screwing down the other screw fairly hard, and it held the standing spindle in place fairly well. But I didn't actually do it while the motor was spinning, so that might anyways, but one of the advantages of this is that it can be quite a bit away from the leg and still be held securely by the other side and not be like pinching or tweaking the bearing. So I think all around this is an improvement of the functionality and the tunability and ability to achieve accuracy of the machine. So
if nothing else, it looks cool.
It does have a kind of a cooler look to it, yeah. But yeah, I expect him to say that it works great. Of course, best laid plans and all that, but assuming that it works as well as my test did, then I'll be uploading that and people can do that for their own. So if you're planning on making your own machine, printing your own parts and all that, and you haven't already printed the legs, hold off for a few days and should be able to get these new legs by the end of the week, probably. And last but not least, here is my slotted Nationals car. No, I'm nowhere near done yet. Just decided to show which car I'm running. No surprise there. That's pretty much the only blue and yellow Group C car that there is. I've got my what do you call it? The two-part.
Yeah, the modular gear.
Modular. There you go. The modular gear in there. I got the half mil offset pod. Obviously, that's not the spec motor and wiring because they're going to be supplied here in a couple weeks.
Yeah, you'll need to have one that has the plugs in it, the wiring.
Yep, yeah, and of course the motor with the tape on it and everything. So I just decided to leave this motor in place while I get testing and tuning. Got the air wheels on, but those are just some random NSR tires, not the ones you recommended.
Okay.
Got my brass screws in the pod. Going to use brass screws in the body as well. The only other things that I haven't put in that I have on my bench are the guide. I still haven't obviously put the guide in, but I got the big tall wood guide.
CHS7.
Yep. And the inserts in the wheels are required, and I can't get them out of the of the wheels, the original wheels for the car. So I'll probably have to buy new inserts for these air wheels.
So why did you go for the modular gear?
Just because it's recommended, because you can get a much fit on it.
Much smoother.
Much smoother, yeah. A lot less play. There's barely a hair of play in the rear axle against the crown.
Is that a new modular gear, Greg?
Brand new. So I had to.
Came with 4 plates.
No, I guess so. It's not brand new. It came with 3. So I've got two on the spacer side and 1 on the crown side. Not sure which would be better, but obviously
most of them like 3 on the crown side and 1 on the spacer side.
I mean, how much play are you wanting? Because I don't even feel like
it's not the play; it's the mesh of the gear.
Yeah, four makes it better.
So if you put 3 on the crown side, then it gives you a slightly looser mesh than if you had 2 there.
Okay, so you want a looser mesh, so 3 on the crown, 1 on the spacer, or vice versa?
That's what Jim's saying.
I think it wasn't 3 on the crown and 1 on the side, or was it the other way around, Dennis?
I know it's 4, but it'll depend on if the gear mesh is too loose.
It depends on the individual gear too, but almost all of them we were 3 and 1, and I can't remember which side.
Do you want it because right now it looks like I got about 2 spacers of play between the gears. If I move the wheel up, it's about 2 spacers.
3 works, but 4 is better.
Yeah, so I'll probably move 1 spacer over and see if I like it better.
Yeah.
Right.
The other thing
also, this car is old one, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, but I got the Evo chassis, so I've already got.
Yeah, but how much is the body weighting? I mean, the weight of the body.
I don't care that much.
Okay, so also, yeah, I mean, it's not gonna be the most competitive car off the bat.
No.
I mean, also the longer tail is gonna have a lot of hanging out there.
I care more about the livery than I do about how well I'm. It's not going to
be the
the
longer tail cars are fine on that track.
Yeah.
You just have to watch it during practice when those silly little red and white tire barriers are still out on the track, but during the racing, those get taken away. But I found that the lower tail and the longer tail is not actually a disadvantage on that track because it gets the tail swinging a little bit more, and it makes the car just a little more stable. And for those of us who can't drive at the level of Jim Rose and Rick Jockham and maybe Gio, we need all the help we can get, and some of it comes from that.
Yeah,
I'm not that good, so
I don't mind a little bit of help from the two, which is why I asked for your advice, and I'm putting in the parts you recommend. Normally, I would have just driven it stock. I'd have used the zero offset pod and
you need that pod, and you need to be grinding tire. You've got to take something off the front tires too, still. Right there.
Yep. I haven't done anything to the fronts. Yeah, so
that the track has about 10 thousandths of recess on the braid, so you can
for that
set it up that way. I set it up on a 10 thousandths block. You could set it up flat too, but then set it up flat with the wheels just touching, and then when you get there, then there'll be a little more weight on the wheel.
Okay.
Yeah, tire diameter. I've gone 18 in the back.
You guys are giving me fantastic advice, but as I keep trying to say here, it's not the car setup that's going to determine my place on it. It's 100% my finger. I will do maybe a little bit better with everything you guys are recommending, but it's not going to get me from the bottom third to the top third. That's for sure.
No, but it's going to get you from the bottom third to the middle third for dead sure.
We're working on that.
Yeah.
If you've got the old pod too, you've got the old black pod.
Yeah.
You can take the spherical bushings out and put them in the front, and it makes the front a lot smoother and less sloppy.
I have spherical bushings in the front already, and I've got set screws on the top and bottom. I've got the tungsten weights in the pod already.
You might experiment with that a little when you get there and just check whether you need both of them or not.
Yeah. Probably will. just to keep it planted. It's not. It might not be as fast, but yeah, we'll play around.
Well, it's not even a matter of that. Sometimes I find that if you've got too much weight in the car, the tires can't handle it, and the car gets very tail happy if you've got too much weight at the back. You want some there to break the rear away, but sometimes the car drives better if it's a little lighter.
We'll find that out on Thursday when I come down.
Maybe one thing that you would like also to kind of have ready might be, I don't know if you're allowed to, but some kind of thin strips of lead that you could put maybe
not allowed.
Not allowed.
Not allowed. Only the tungsten weights, and only in the pockets in the motor pod.
Yeah. It's basically slotted anything class, non-mag. But if it's not a slotted provided part, you can't put it in the
apart from the braid and the wire.
And the screws.
So when you say that these braids are recessed, so it means that they're below the surface of the track, right?
The braid on the track is about 10 thousandths below the level of the track. Yes.
How much is that in millimeters?
Are you allowed to use spacers to lower the guide?
You've got an adjustable front axle. You don't need to put spacers in. There's no because there's no clearance rule at the front of the car. The clearance rule is under the rear axle. So you can drop.
Is it any group C slotted or just any slotted?
Any group C slotted.
Group C. Okay.
Group C only. Yeah.
And you might check with Marco, because I know our rules, are different than the Nats rules, obviously, but he might allow you to update the interior to the newer interior. I don't know. The new interior is lighter.
That's not important enough. Maybe while I'm down there, I don't know.
I would agree with that.
And just to give you an idea, I'm cutting rear tires to 8.5.
What was that?
Waiting for my
just
phone
to give you an idea, I'm cutting rear tires to 18.5.
on with a 0.5 millimeter offset pod.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, mine are at 18.8, I think. So they're a little bigger than that.
I think Greg's just happy to be there and participating.
Yeah, that's
He's not gonna trim 1/1,000,000th of a centimeter off of every single thing. And
Oh yeah.
he just wants to have
And
fun.
we're all happy to have Greg here too, believe it or not.
yeah. Find that hard to believe.
Oh, come on.
There
It's
might
fun
be
to
one
have
or
you
two
there. The
people
last
that are
time it'll be
not
a lot of fun to have you there.
Well,
Yeah,
it'll
looking
be-
forward to meeting him in person. Definitely.
You weren't there last time?
No, he wasn't there last time.
I feel like I met you in person. Wow, so much chatting.
Mhm.
Okay, well, yeah, I'll be meeting lots and lots of people because there'll be lots and lots of people there. For me, it'll be meeting some really cool people that I've never met before. But yeah, I've already met Joachim, so he's old hat. I don't give a shit about Joachim.
Nobody does.
All right, I'm done with my show and tell. Obviously, I'll be doing more on that car, and I'll talk about it probably in the future. So we got lots of other hands up. I'm going to go with who's first on my screen because I don't remember who was first up on my screen. So it's Dennis. Go ahead, Dennis.
All right, just change over. This is more for Garth than anybody else. Garth sent me very kindly, sent me a couple of sets of his wheels. And so I can report on these things now. He sent me some of these super fancy multi-spoke things in two sizes, in 15/8 and a 17, which is really nice. And then these fancy double 5-spokes. Guys, these things are amazing. They are really, really nice. I was most impressed, not only with the quality of the little aluminum spacers that come with it, including a set screw, but just the quality of the wheel itself and the concentricity of them. These things are close on perfect, just as they come. Got to be a little careful when you put the sleeve into the wheel. I have a little arbor press, so that helps a whole lot in doing that. But they press in very well. That's a nice tight fit, and the tires are the wheels are very, very round when you're done. So if you're in the market for some really light, strong wheels, and you have a specific design, all I can say is Garth's done a wonderful job on these, and I cannot recommend them highly enough. And that's me for now. Oh, I was just going to say one other thing. I have some of these little thingies, which are spacers that I use in the ball bearing front wheels that I have for the retro cars. And even though they have a hole in the side of them to take a set screw, when I assemble those, if I trim that piece off, then it's exactly the same length as this, and I'm going to use those pressed in to these wheels when I want independent front wheels that will rotate nice and free on an axle. And I have brass ones which were a mistake from the machining shop, and I have some aluminum ones as well, so I'll try both of those. But yeah, that'll give me a nice option of an independent wheel, just with a washer on the end of the axle to hold them in. But yeah, Garth, thank you very much for that. I really do appreciate them. And guys, you know where to find good wheels now. And that's me.
If you have a design idea that hasn't been done yet, I'm sure he'd be overjoyed to make it
Yeah,
happen.
like he's been doing for Dewan and his Centerline wheels. Yeah, excellent. Thank you very much.
All right. Good stuff. Thanks for showing those off, Dennis. And Mike, you are next, sir.
Well, I haven't had any cars for a while, but I managed to get sort of one of my holy grails, the Inco 250 TR.
Yeah, those are good.
It was the first car that I ever lusted after when I was a child, and I love it. It's, of course, going to have to be chopped up because I can't stand the crease on the side. That's got to be fixed.
Oh yeah.
And so the wheels are actually pretty nice.
The Ninko wheels
Question
are
to
nice.
those who have run these though, what rubber tires do you use on the rear for these? Do you have any idea?
Yeah, the stock ones.
The stock
Stock
ones
ones?
are excellent. Yeah.
The stock
Okay.
Ninko rubber is very good.
It responds
Okay.
well to light oil as well.
All right. And then the other one was a real disappointment. It's a nice car, but it must have gotten dirty in transit, which is not really true. It was not supposed to be the after race version, but it is. And I'm not sending it back to Spain to get the right one.
It's a fly?
So, no, it's SRC 907 Porsche. So yeah, I was kind of disappointed. It's like, oh, and I can't really take alcohol to it because that'll start taking the underlying paint off too, I guess. So that part, I guess I'll just run it as is and see. I maybe could polish it off, but we'll see. We'll see. I'll do a little test on a back portion of it and see how it goes. But I haven't run either of them yet because I've been a little busy. I'll talk about that at Club Corner. But those are my two that I was looking forward to.
The Ninko,
That's
which
all.
motor does he have?
Pardon
Which
me?
motor do you have in the Ninko? Which motor
In the
do you have
Ninko?
in the Ferrari?
NC1.
Yeah.
Okay.
That'll probably be changed
No, enjoy it.
because it's
think?
going to have to be comparable to the other like the Maserati A6 GS and the other cars that I have in the classes. So I'll get the times relatively equal.
Yeah, put a H&R 18.5 or something in it, or a Predator.
Yeah.
All righty. Thank you, Mike. And Tony,
Okay.
what you got today?
Two cars.
You NSR F1 or that? Yep.
The new NSR.
Yeah. Test.
The
Test car, yeah.
the Atalaya decals for the Polycar modern Formula One are a reasonable fit on that particular car. Here and there, you've got to cut them up a little bit, but they work well and they look very, very good.
That one.
Anyone any experience running those yet?
Yeah, they're not as they're not as fast as the 86, 89 car.
Mm-hmm.
Despite the fact that mechanically they're quite similar. Certainly in terms of the parts, the motor's the same, the gearing's the same, but two things are different. One is, of course, the fact that it has big wheels and low-profile tires at the rear, and the other thing is that the motor is about 1/4 of an inch further forward in the car than the old 86, 89. And as a result of those two things, the handling is a little compromised. Would be a word that I would use, and so I haven't found them to be as quick yet as the 86, 89 ones.
Okay, interesting.
But they don't need to, right? Because I mean, they will be running on their own class. So
I would think so. Yes, it's not
yeah.
something.
So are they good out of the box, or there is any kind of modification that needs to be done?
No, I
Except
haven't
for the
done any
use of-
modification other than just gluing and truing the tires and getting the setup done. You have the same thing, the same story with the gears. You've got to watch the gear mesh at the back and the play in the rear axle. That long pinion that they've used does not, to me anyway, seem to be a major issue so far.
And they've
But
used
other
that
than-
to extend the motor shaft.
Yeah, because the motor
Yeah.
shafts are the same length, but the pinions now has this 1/4 of an inch extension on it because the motor's further forward. It's a kind of a weird little thing, but it seems to work okay.
Well, that has
I
to
just
have the
don't
knob on
know
the end of
whether
the gear to fit in the crown slot, doesn't it?
Yeah.
Gosh, that has to run nice and true then.
It does run nice and true. There's no real problem with that. I think
Well-
the problem is going to be trying to take them off and put different size pinions on. And I haven't seen yet that there are different size pinions. I guess there will be. But if you don't mess with that stuff and you just change the crown gear, I think things will work fine. I put a 24 or 20, I think a 24 tooth slotted crown gear into mine to get the speed on the Electric Dreams track, and it seems to be working fine.
Tony's got more. I know he was waiting, being polite.
Yeah, sorry. Yeah.
That's all right. I'm learning.
Thanks, Tony. What was that one?
It's a BMW.
M6.
Sideways. M6.
Sideways, yeah, M6, yeah.
M6.
Oh,
Yeah.
look at that color scheme, and they're beautifully done.
That's a GT, right? Not a Group
That's
5.
GT3.
GT3, yeah.
GT3.
Yeah.
Big car.
Uh-huh.
It's in there.
Big car.
Dennis, are the
It's long.
pods
It is
on
long.
the
Yeah, they took the wing off.
No, I don't think so. The wing is there.
No,
Wing
it's
is there.
not.
No,
Well, it
it-
Hey,
They don't mount the wing because you can't fit it into the clear case if the wing is mounted.
I haven't actually had these out of the box yet. So. I bought
Oh,
the
yeah,
white-
that's a must for me. It's number 34, so that's a good number.
I've got the white kit, but then they brought this one out, so I thought I have to get a coloured one.
Yeah, that's nice.
It's nice.
They're doing a very good job on their liveries. The paint from Sideways is very good.
Yeah. Dennis, on the Formula One NSRs, is the pod from the 86, 89 interchangeable with the new one or not?
No, it's a
Oh.
different pod.
Okay.
He will
That's
have moved the
longer.
motor forward to fit it underneath the body shell, which is going to have a tight Coke bottle area.
Yeah.
I
Okay.
think that was the reasoning, although it doesn't look to me like it does look to me like they could have left it where it was, but obviously there may be something else coming that we don't know about.
Okay.
submarine. NSR
That
submarine.
one's from the.
We've got another one.
Ah, there's an
It's come
8689.
This come a few weeks ago. I've shown it before, but this is the 86, 89 one, isn't it?
Yeah, those are really nice.
All right, thanks for showing off, Tony.
That's all I've
And,
got.
go ahead, Jim.
Well, as if I didn't have enough on my plate, I decided to do something new. And I talked to Greg about this a couple weeks ago about 3D printing. So I haven't bought a printer yet, but I've been playing with the software to design some things. So I've designed a pit caddy that is what I want. And I don't know if I just thought I'd show you this to see if anybody might have any suggestions or anything. The lint roller is going to just sit in there. You take the lint roller off its handle and lay it in that cradle, so you can either roll it in the device or or you can just pull it out and use it. I've got 2 bottle holes, miscellaneous because there was extra space there, and a slot for lane stickers. And what I found is a guy makes an HO one that's just great, and it's very good for HO because it has a adjustable holder. So you can slip this over the track, or you can just take this out entirely. There'll be thumb screws that go in those 2 holes to hold the hanger on, so you can move the hanger in and out depending on the width of where you're hanging it, or just taking it out altogether. So I'm playing with that. I think I've got a pretty good design that works for the way I want a pit caddy to work. So I'm gonna work on this design a little bit and maybe send it off to print. I think I'm gonna wait in buying a printer and may just send this out to have some things printed to see if I'm doing okay with the software, and then go from there.
If I could make some suggestions,
I
depending
was
on.
gonna say, do you want some feedback or not?
Yeah,
Sure.
do you want?
But Greg, go ahead. Greg, go.
Well, if you don't get a printer, where would you be sending it off to get printed? What kind of printing technology would you have it done with?
I just went on Tinkercad, and you can send it to various fulfillment houses and have them print it. So that's kind of where I was going with it.
So the design considerations differ between different printing technologies. If you're going to send it to an SLS company like Shapeways or the one that Garth found, then you can pretty much just go to town and not worry about anything. I'm sure there are some concerns, just not as many as for filament printing or resin printing. Filament printing wise, you want to avoid fillets, which are the round edges, for everybody who doesn't know what a fillet is, on the side that's going to be on the printer bed, because what you end up with is an almost horizontal overhang at the very edge where the fillet starts before it starts to go, vertical, right? That overhang causes warping or curling, and then inevitably the whole piece will come up off the bed, and you'll either have ugly bottom edges, or the whole print will fail because it literally just warps itself right off the bed.
So on that design, I'd be better off to cut that off and take a slab off the bottom, so it's just a flat bottom on the corners without the fillet.
These days, I prefer just a straight flat bottom, a very small chamfer, like no more than 1 millimeter chamfer, so a 45-degree cut rather than a round cut. Will make it so you have a nicer edge, because there's this thing called elephant's foot where the very first layer is over squished, and so it will kind of squish out from under a perfectly 90-degree corner. But most recent slicers have a feature that kind of helps alleviate that by adding essentially a small chamfer to the bottom. The rounded corners, good. I'm in favor of that, because a hard corner not only is uncomfortable but also promotes warping and lifting because of plastic shrinkage and stuff. That was really my only main concern, but I would recommend that for your adjustable hanger piece, that's made with 3 pieces.
Well, no, this is the hanger itself is going to be attached with steel rods. So I just put it together so you could see it. So that hanger part, I'll flip it 90 degrees so it's flat on the bed. And then when I put it together, it's going to be a steel rod that just glued in so it slides in and out. Okay,
so so obviously that's a choice, and that's not a bad idea. But what I was going to, assuming that it's printed, what I was going to suggest is the flat piece obviously is printed flat, but instead of having round rods that can't really be printed, laying down, you do hexagonal rods, which can then be printed laying down so that they are stiff and strong in that direction. So they would be functional for that purpose and not break easily.
Okay, well, no, the rods I was going to make out of piano wire.
Yeah, but steel rods.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, I mean, I like to do things printed if I can avoid hardware, if at all possible.
The other reason for steel rods is I can put a magnet on it, because I may want to put a magnet on one side to stick like a lane sticker on the back or something.
Yeah, that's a good idea.
Yeah, there's a reason for the steel rods.
Well, so you've already got that problem figured out, but if you decided to print that, then I've got suggestions for you there too.
Okay. So, but that's a good, I can just slice off the bottom easy to take the chamfers off, or the fillets off.
Yeah, that should not be hard. Yeah,
Thanks.
I think it's a great idea. Looking forward to it. And if you want me to do a test print, I'm happy to whip one out on a machine for free. I'll bring it down.
I would use set screws rather than thumb screws for the adjustment as well, because it's not something that you're going to adjust a lot.
Well, I probably will use set screws just because the thumb screw sits on the top, and it limits the space up there, so it's harder to put stuff in the slot. So yeah, I was thinking about just set screws.
And then if they're magnetic set screws, then there's some like those little magnetic motor coolers will probably just stick to that as well if you want to carry one of those around. Otherwise, I would put a little magnet or a little piece of steel somewhere if you use those motor coolers.
I do have one of those. I can't remember who makes them, but I got one.
Oh, you can't remember who makes them? Okay.
Dennis makes them.
I don't make them. Idea. I just distribute them. Yeah.
That would be a good slot to put in, and I've got one, so I can measure it. Thanks.
Okay.
In that otherwise unused space, probably.
Yep, exactly.
All right, good stuff. Looking forward to see progress on that. Thank you, Jim. And I guess, does anybody else have any show and tell that they want to wave their hand or shout, Greg, I have a show and tell? If not, we'll move on to Club Corner. I'm not hearing anything or seeing anything, so now it's Club Corner time. Past, present, or future, driving a slot car around a track with, heck, yourself or other people. Raise your hand to talk about it. And Mike is raring to go, so go ahead, Mike.
Well, actually, I had 2 sessions this week. One of them was really frustrating. If you remember from last week, I was soldering my track together, so there was no breaks in the track at all as far as electricity goes. And the problem I was trying to alleviate was the computer control system, the RCS64, going into disassociation with the power base, and it was frequent, and I thought maybe the cause was some kind of resistance in the track itself, hence my soldering them all together. Well, it made it worse, to the point where we were getting uncontrolled cars every 2-3 minutes, it seemed like. So it was really frustrating, and I don't know what the problem is, where it lies. Somewhere in the connection from the computer to the power base, that's the only thing I can figure out, or something in the computer itself.
So the problem is that the power base is losing connection with RCS64, right? So
correct.
You get the pop up on RCS64 connection lost, and
Right.
then your cars either go dead or go crazy.
Right. Well, they go crazy.
They go crazy.
Almost always.
Does the power base do any light flashing or anything?
No.
Okay. So to troubleshoot, I would suggest unhooking the PC and plugging in the LCD tower and just running a bunch of laps to see if anything
It'll
happens
only do it with
the
2 or
PC.
3 cars. The more cars I have, and like I've been using 2 ghost cars most of the time, which are magnet cars. So it has something to do with load, because it never does it unless I short it out accidentally with the braids or something, when I have only 1 or maybe 2 cars. But if I have 3 cars or 5 cars, it will do it on a real regular basis. And as I said, it's gotten worse. I mean, surprisingly, I thought, the problem was in the connections, but apparently it's not. It's something in between that. Now, I think somewhere along the line you mentioned some drivers for the ports on using the cable. So
I mean, if it's working right now, then there's not like different drivers to use. It's mainly
okay. All right. So there's not.
Yeah, but it certainly could be a computer issue. So next time you run it, even before you start a race, bring up your task manager and take a look at your CPU load and stuff like that. Take a look at your RAM load and things like that, or even hard drive load, because if your RAM load is way up and it's right into the hard drive, then the processor load will be way up, and the more cars, the more it's having to process, because the base is a slave, so every car adds additional data input and output for RCS to handle.
Well, one of the clues is that afterwards, sometimes we'll get funky controllers. You'll have an odd feel for the controller. It doesn't work as it did before it cut out.
Yeah.
So it makes me think, since I'm using the adjustments in the throttle curves to turn down the power on it. We generally run at magless 40 for most of them. And so since I'm using that, the system gets funky afterwards. You can feel there's a difference in the way the controller works. And not always, but sometimes. And then if I shut it off and put it back on, it works fine. And sometimes not. But it's got to the point where I think for next week I'm going to use Arc Pro and try and figure out Arc Pro Magic app on Arc Pro before next week and see what happens with that.
I would suggest trying to do it before next week, before you host a race. Figure it out.
Yeah. It's not going to be next week. I'm going to experiment with beforehand. Of course, figuring out all the settings and stuff on Magic is, of course, another, section of things to learn and how they work and the damage control. And right now, the only thing that I figured out the pits and stuff and how the settings work with that, which is different than RCS 64, of course. But I haven't figured out the damage yet and how that works. So that's on my to-do list for this week. So along with setting up 9 cars.
So what version of Windows is your race computer?
It's 11. It's a fairly new computer and it has almost nothing on it.
Interesting.
So the question is, have you tried, as Greg suggested, to run your base with the tower instead of connecting to the computer?
Yeah, it runs fine with the tower. And the problem is you can't tell because using one car, even if I try using 2 ghost cars and 1 car, it isn't enough to screw with the tower.
Yeah, because ghost cars.
And I switched out bases. I've got two power bases, so I switched out the bases, and so I know it reacted the same both times. So I know that it's
okay.
Not
So wait a second, roll back. So you were saying that when you use the tower, and you put a ghost car, so that the base will behave the same way?
No.
No.
It does not. Only when you have more than one driver car through RCS 64.
Yep.
Pace cars on RCS 64 don't make the problem pop up.
You know what? I don't think I've tried doing one driver car and 2 pace cars on RCS 64 and see if it happens. I haven't done that yet. I haven't eliminated that as a possibility. And I don't think I've done pace cars with the tower yet. So those are 2 things that I've got to try. Yeah.
And the other thing, so basically when this issue happened, you are running a couple of cars by humans and 2 pace cars. 5 cars,
3 driver cars generally and 2 pace cars. And the 2 pace cars are magnet cars.
And the 2 pace cars always the same when the problem happens, or you have changed them?
I've changed the cars and it doesn't make any difference.
Do you still have an old computer that you used to use?
Yeah, I do. I did have the problem with that one too, but I will try that and see what happens. And what I'll do with that one is I'll strip it completely, get everything off of it except RCS 64. Yeah. And so that's the only thing that's there. And that way I can.
The only
I think what you should do is test the load. I mean, even like when you have your drivers coming with you, maybe see with the 3 drivers and see whether you can set up ghost cars with the tower. And check whether basically this is going to happen with the tower. Because if it does not happen, then I think the problem is with the cable. Maybe the cable is messed up. And so basically when you have multiple cars, especially I think with the pace cars, because the computer is dealing with a lot of that information there. Yeah. It's basically, I think, I don't know, overloading, shortcutting. I don't know what the heck is going on, but it might be the problem that is with the cable.
I was going to say the only other thing that we haven't eliminated is the cable itself.
Yeah. And of course the cables are not that easy to get. So I think you have to PM Rico Rocket on
That's the only person I know.
Yeah. Okay.
It's time to switch to oxygen, man.
Not
that's
yet.
What
I haven't got my.
That's what the Cosmo is telling you, man.
I've actually got most of the polycar track set up. I've got about 2/3 of it done, and I'm trying to decide. I don't want to spend too much extra cash at this point on getting extra pieces of track, which I have tons of scale extras. So, I could just play with it and try it, but I don't want to play the try it and see if it works game with the polycar because it's going to be too expensive to do that.
I didn't say play. I mean, get to more polycar. Just say oxygen. You don't need a polycar for getting.
Yeah.
Okay,
Well,
good luck with
that
the
of course
sorting out.
means at least 9 chips for each of the cars and installing them. So at this point, I've got 2 chips, and of the 4 chips that I bought, 2 have been bad. So
These are the C chip, oxygen C chip.
Oxygen chips, yeah.
The
B
type
chip.
Yeah, but there are 2 types. There are 2 types of oxygen chips. There is a C or C1 and B2. Which one is it?
C.
Okay. Did you? Okay. Yeah. So avoid buying C.
You what?
doesn't like the C.
You have to avoid the C chips. I mean, B2 are much more reliable. There are still issues, but the B2 chips are more reliable than the C. I mean, these are at least is my experience. I mean, I have like I don't know, around maybe 40 B2 and 10 C1 or C2 or C1 actually. And yeah, the C1 always, there is always some kind of cracking issue.
Huh. Okay.
I can't really say. I have no
Well,
basic.
the B chip is larger though, which is a problem.
Yeah, but it's not a big issue. I mean, yeah, I mean, unless you want to cheap F1 cars, I mean, the classic ones, I mean, you can fit a B2, and I never had a problem with the B2.
Yeah, but I'm a lot of times I'm running Formula One cars and stuff like that too, and there's no room for a B chip in that for sure. Anyway, it is an option. I'll have to see, but I don't know if I'm quite ready to go to oxygen yet, because I don't think it's really ready for prime time for the most part. With all the problems with the slotted handles and stuff like that, it's not quite ready from my standpoint, because I'm not that computer savvy. For somebody who's computer savvy, it's fine, probably. For me, it's like, oh shit. I already had one visit to Greg over that stuff.
I was gonna say, call Greg again.
Yeah. Well, I need an excuse to go over to Seattle area again. Well, Kent anyway. So.
Well, what about the other?
We shall see. To be determined next week.
What about the other racing that you were saying you did?
Oh, I did 124th race last night, and we tried an interesting qualifying method. We qualified by distance rather than time. So it put a premium on staying on the track in your qualifying run. And it was pretty interesting. I ended up in the A main as a result of it, which was pretty cool. Then my car broke on the 4th lap when somebody hit me from behind. And I had tried to, on the, this was stock cars we usually do stock cars on the first Tuesday LMPs on the first Tuesday and stock cars on the 3rd Tuesday. And the stock cars have provision to bolt the motor into it, but it's offset to one side more, and it's offset to the wrong side a little bit. You want to center it more. Most of the guys are soldering it in. I'm really not that good at getting a gear mesh when I solder it in. So I usually bolt them in, but I bolt them in and they're offset. Well, I tried spacing out the screws that hold the motor in to move the motor closer to the center. And it did make it a difference as far as handling, but the longer screws allowed less leeway when you got hit. It moved the motor and screwed up the gear mesh and ground the gear out. So I borrowed another car and I finished 6th out of 8 people as a result of the problems that I had. So it wasn't that great, but it was an experiment. And I think what I'll do is I'll partially solder the motor in on the back half, and after I've got the gear mesh set with screws, and go from there, and we'll see what happens. But I'm down about 2/10 overall on the fast guys that are there in the group, and of course I need to, once I borrowed a car. Of course, that was set up completely differently than I set up my cars, so it was really, really interesting. I was off a lot more than I should be, and I lost probably 25 laps screwing around with trying to figure out the car because I hadn't any practice with it at all. But we shall see. I'll I'll solder the back end and see if it holds up better next time and see what happens. So that's it for me.
Them's the brakes.
Is this a business, Mike, where you need a washer or a spacer, sorry, that occupies the full area of the front of the motor? You know, a single one with 2 holes.
Hang on a second. I'll show you what I'm talking about.
I guess that with longer, you're using longer screws and you're spacing them out away from the mounting bracket.
Yes.
So you want a washer that covers the whole of the face of the motor.
Well, that would be preferable, yes. But I didn't have that.
So you were doing it like on standoffs?
You see where the motor is mounted?
Yeah, the little tubular standoffs.
Yeah, right. And there's 3 screws in it.
Yeah, oh gosh. Yeah.
So it works.
And those motors,
handling
the
was-
end of the motor is that where it's mounted is probably the weakest point of that whole design.
Yeah.
Not a good thing. That you need to solder those things in. That's for dead sure.
Yeah.
That's what I'm figuring. I'll probably end up doing that. I don't know. This motor's not the best in the world, so I'll see what happens. They're switching over to the Eagle motors, which are a little bit cheaper, because these have gone up to $45 a piece now. So I think the Eagle is about 18 or 19 bucks, if I remember correctly.
Less than that, even, I think.
Pardon me?
I think that's like $13.95.
Oh, okay.
They are down here anyway.
So, well, the guy that he runs sort of a shop out of the building that we race in, under the auspices of the guy who rents the place that we run in and rents the area for the track. And he just does it he doesn't make a lot of money on it, maybe 5% on most of the stuff that he sells. So it'll probably be at least that price.
Mhm.
And I guess the Eagle motors don't have quite as good braking as these, but they're just as quick. So I might try that and see. For that kind of money, it's not. On a positive note, despite finishing 6th, I made $5 out of we usually put in $10 as an entry fee, and the money is distributed down the line. And plus the guy who owns the place basically pays us to play with him, to get people to come to the track. And so I ended up with a $5. I didn't break anything. I ended up with a $5 profit. So, and sometimes it's been more than that, and it offsets the cost of a lot of the consumables like tires and stuff like that. So it's not bad for that, but it is interesting how boring I find analog racing compared to digital. It's just like, okay, it's me. It's just me.
But I don't think it was only me who thought to ask, how did you get hit in the back when you're analog racing?
Don't even get me started.
Ryder.
If you can't stay in the lane, that's what happens.
Yeah. Well, in this case, it wasn't. It was somebody else that flew out and nailed me. So I was doing pretty well up until that point. But you're right. And, the crashing, of course, is at quite high speed. So your cars have to be fairly robust. It's just the nature of the track, particularly, you've got from a 90-degree to another about 270-degree bank turn. So you're on the throttle full on for about 1.5 seconds out of a 5-second lap. It's 4.5. So yeah, it's for me, it's like, it's really hard to get that at those speeds to get the braking points right for old fingers and brains and eyes and stuff like that. So, but I don't find it near as interesting as the other tracks, because they're so big and the turns are such wide radius, it's not, it just isn't me. I enjoy the digital much more in that regard. But you know, there's in this area, there's not much slot car racing at all. People look at you like you're crazy when you say you race slot cars. So, you know, I just take what I could get. And the plus side is that, you know, having poached a couple guys to run digital, that's been a bonus. So I do it for that reason and for the social aspect of it.
Yeah.
So
Always a big reason.
anyway, that's it.
Well, with the move towards qualifying being about scoring as many laps as you can, hopefully that moves the motivation towards a more consistent driving style, and that will improve the whole club.
Well, a lot of the guys have said, or the two guys that I raced with me have said that the racing digital has promoted their learning abilities and made them better racers overall. So, you know, that's a plus. I'm still trying to get guys to come over and do it. You know, whether they like it or not, you know, if they can try it, that's fine. If they don't like it, that's great. If it's some people just aren't interested. But you have to do a lot more thinking and strategy in digital than you do in analog. In analog is basically stay on the track, go as fast as you can, and you know, and try and avoid the people that are trying to knock you off by going sideways. Some of that carries over to digital, but you have strategy and fuel and tires and weather and that kind of stuff that's completely different from what you run into in basic analog racing. And most of the guys aren't interested in that. We've tried a couple things. This is the first time we've tried the qualifying by distance rather than time. And it shook things up more than a little bit because the guy who owns the track ended up in the B main because he fell off once. So in qualifying, and he's generally fastest. So he won the B main, but you know, we've tried various different things. And a lot of these guys are old slot car racers that have been doing the same style of racing forever. And, you know, as you get older, you're not necessarily interested in doing something different. And that's a problem in more ways than one, for one thing. But anyway, I'm going to keep trying, and hopefully I can get a solid digital group. If I could get at least 6 guys to run, or even more, that make life real interesting on my short track, or even on the long one when I get the polycar one set up.
For sure.
Yeah.
Alrighty, good stuff, Mike.
Right.
And
thanks.
Go ahead.
Yeah, well, I've got a bit of catching up to do. I haven't been on for a few weeks due to all my other appointments seeming to fall on Thursdays. So we haven't been particularly overrun by entries at our track at Laguna Seca, as we call it, but we've been having enjoyable racing on Friday nights anyway. Before I start, I'd just like to thank the guys at Electric Dreams for entertaining me with their race a couple of weeks ago and keeping me up all night. One thing that was a bit disturbing to me was to see Dennis Sampson and Dan Tufts racing without their caps. I thought, you know, what's wrong with this picture?
Oh, dear, I forgot about that.
It just looked up, you know, I didn't know whether there was a heat wave there and you were sort of, you know, keeping your head cool or something like that. Yeah,
I will remember that for the next time and make sure that my cap is on my head.
Yeah, I thought, oh, is this the real Dennis Sampson?
Yes.
Yeah, okay, so I'll start a screen share. So I've got we do have a Saturday meet coming up this week, but anyway, we'll get to the racing that's already been done. So going for a share screen. And are we coming in?
Not yet. There we go.
Okay. I can tell you that down here is nothing like the hot days you've been talking about. It's about 3 degrees Celsius as I speak now, which is about 37 Fahrenheit. So our track host Dave has been doing some creature comforts there. He's putting some insulation up, as you can, whether you can see it or not, but that's what he's doing. We can't show you his face, but, because he's an engineer or something like that. So we just move on. We've already had some comforts by this lovely little wood heater that keeps the place pretty warm. So it's been a little bit enjoyable, even though the weather's been quite cool. 3 weeks ago, June the 2nd, this was we had Group C, just the 4 entries as I've mentioned, and I raced my old car and happened to get a win there, but it was, as you'll see by the results, it was a pretty close race. Oops, sorry, hang on. So where's the next? Okay, yeah, okay, so there we are. It says that, come back. Right. It shows that we're all on 82 laps, but I actually was put. Is yours flicking? Keeps flicking over the next picture.
We're still seeing the cars on the track.
Oh, okay. Well, so which cars are you seeing now? The Group C's or?
Group C, yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Well, I'm just trying to navigate to the. You see, I'm seeing a different picture to what you guys are seeing. Let me just.
Maybe stop the share and start it over. Oh, now we see laps.
Yeah, well, you said. Yeah, but these are they're the wrong results. So I'm just going to flick back a few pictures.
Okay.
Okay, so there's our picture for the results of the Group C. It shows we were all on, 3 of us on 82 laps.
Yep.
Kerry, who ran 3rd, thought he'd got me by about 6 inches, but the problem was that I was put back on the incorrect lane, so I was owed a lap. So I actually ended up with 83, but as you can see, with the 4 of us, only 2 or 3 laps covering the lot of us. So moving on to V8 muscle cars, and Kerry got his first win at the track. That's him in the Mustang at the start. I raced, Dave, our host, followed by me with the little Pioneer Mustang. We only had 2 races for the night because one of the guys, Kerry, had to, so again, even though Dave shows the top there, Kerry, beat him on track section, so he got the win there. And they had some really close door-to-door racing during the whole race when they were both on the track. So it was great to watch. It was great to see him get his first win at our venue. Being only 4 there, so 3 driving obviously, and 1 trying to marshal. We just stationed the marshal by the control panel, and if someone come off on a remote part of the track, we just used the space bar to control the track call. So not ideal, but better than no racing at all. So on to the following week, and again, more quality this week because I wasn't racing. I didn't sort of feel all that well. So the still 4 guys, but a different 4 guys. So there's the V8 muscle cars again. And Leon, close victory over Dave, and the other 2 just a few laps back. Then they also raced, next one up. Then it was Group C. The cars at the top, the guy called Coxey, he had a new, I think that's the Lancia, that one. And Peter, Dave's father, had a new XJR10, so 2 new cars debuted quite nicely, and again fairly close race wise, if I recall. Yeah, both on the same laps, and Dave just on a lap behind, or part of a lap behind on 85. So Good racing there, good close scores. And they finished off with the Group 2 sedans. Dave first there in the 2 escorts. And he had quite a comfortable win there by the look of that. So, and then we go on to last Friday night and started off with Group 2, and I finally started to get my little BMW worked out and grabbed a second place. We had 5 races. The escort at the back, the all blue one, that's just on a brass chassis made by our expat Canadian chap that runs another track about 60 k's from Launceston. The guy running the 25 Alpha was someone who hadn't driven a slot car for 20 years. He's still in radio control racing, and he did very, very well for someone who hadn't driven for that long. As you'll, Andrew's his name, but we've always called him Bart. So as you can see, he just managed to edge out Kerry there for the 4th place. And then next up was Group C's again, and this old car of mine's showing a bit of form. So again, just a pretty close race again, as the scores will say, but the 5 entries and just a lap in it, or maximum of a lap in it. And the last one was DTMs, slotted DTMs. New car for Coxie again. He had the edge over most of us here because that day glow orange paint scheme just dazzled everybody, and we couldn't really focus on our own cars because it's just too bright. So I started off running my Mercedes, then rolled a tire on it, even though they were glued. The glue must have come adrip. So I ran a white kit Calibra. These are both the Calibras are white kits. So and again, I ran third that one. So I got a medal of every colour for the night. A gold, a silver, and a bronze. So. And again, Bart did pretty well for someone that hadn't driven a car for that long. And now this obscure looking symbol up on the screen is the logo of our local television broadcaster, the national broadcaster. It's called the ABC. It's quite different to your ABC, but a couple of weeks ago, someone was having gear mesh problems with an inline car. It was going loose and tight. And Chris mentioned that some of these gears have got a wobble in them. And when you see the 3D rotating image of this one, you see we used to always call the gears that weren't true. We used to call them like the ABC logo. So I was reminded of that when Chris was talking about gears that weren't, were different. Some parts it was close at some parts of the rotation and far away. So you had really always a balancing act to get your gear mesh to be decent. So. That's it for the races we've had. As I said, we're coming up Saturday racing. We've already got about 6 or 7 nominated, so hopefully it'll be a good turnout, good day. And that's me for this week.
All righty, good stuff. All right, looks like Russ is next.
Hello, everybody.
Hello.
Good to see you guys. Mine's just a 2-part thing, and it is about club racing. So 2 things. One is, how do you let me put it this way. What do you think is the perfect number of racers for a club or thereabouts? I mean, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12. What do you guys think?
12 to 16.
Okay.
46.
What?
I mean, it's kind of how long is a piece of string, right? I mean,
Depends, exactly.
it depends how big, the premise is, how many lanes, is it digital, is it analog? I mean, I think there are many factors here. It's like home kind of a club. It's a proper club. I mean,
Okay,
What-
how about three times?
format, you know.
How about three times the number of lanes you've got in your track?
There you go. Yeah.
that could be,
Yeah,
that could be a
that's-
good way of.
Most of the tracks we run on are 4 lanes.
Yep. And usually
And
for our race
Go
nights,
ahead.
12 is too many people for the way that we race, in my opinion.
Yeah, but it also it depends how much space you have around you, right? I mean, it doesn't matter how many lanes you might have. If you put 6 people inside and it's already crammed the place, you don't want more than. I mean, unless you live, in a place where you can also sit outside or whatever,
So I was just looking at the track behind him and going by that. I figure if you have 12 or 16, you have 4-lane track, you never have an empty lane. Because one thing I hate to see is like we have a race day, but then some of the rotations, there's an empty lane. You're like, well, it's a waste of time and effort for me.
Right.
It doesn't really matter. I mean, who cares? I mean, about having
I know
an
it doesn't
empty
matter to
lane.
you,
Well,
but you
It's
Well,
not.
I think
I mean,
1 is not enough, so that I kind of care. So my
well,
question,
I mean, depends,
right, next
because if you're
thing-
doing a rally setup, for instance, right, or kind of rally stage, 1 person is more than enough. You're basically racing against time, against yourself.
Yeah.
but
Okay.
Gio, look at the track behind us there. That's probably the track he's talking
So
about.
based on
Yeah,
that,
but I don't know if that is a track,
That's
Jeremy. You're
probably
making an
it.
assumption there, right? I
Okay.
mean,
that's Russ's track.
Thank you.
If they only go to 1 team in baseball, I probably won't go to the games. So the next thing would be, how do you guys go about recruiting new racers?
Yeah, that's a whole nother question.
So whatever efforts you make will not pay off. Some people just randomly pop up and say, hey, I heard you're racing. That's like 90% of the people that joined us just randomly found somebody. But I did Facebook. I did every user group. I listed my track in the Iowa section because that's where I'm from. But like, I just randomly will get emails from somebody who heard from somebody else. And that's how we find people. It's very weird.
yeah. In my case, I kind of, because, there was already analog club, and because I was more interested in digital, so I kind of managed to get some people from the analog club to come along. And now there are other new people that basically have joined. But for instance, last night there was someone new. It's basically, the people that come in the club, they also talk with other people. If they're interested, they bring them in. So yesterday, for instance, was this new person that comes, so I was pretty excited. So it seems that someone interested into the thing. So we did the practice, qualify. And I have to explain all the bloody things because digital, the way in which we do is not that easy. And then after qualify, basically the person left because I think it was suffering from kind of a seizure or something because of the lights and the cars so basically left. So I wasted half an hour explaining the bloody thing for nothing.
But it could have paid off. So, it
Also,
was only
do you-
Could have paid off, yeah. But,
Do you have a website set up or anything, or even a Facebook group? That's
Yeah,
one thing you
I've
want to
got-
have.
Well, Greg's got Facebook. He's in our club too, or basically runs the club damn near. But Greg's got his websites. I've got a Facebook page. Now I haven't actively, and a YouTube page. I haven't actively thrown out there, call me. We're looking for racers. I
Yeah.
don't
but
know.
if I was to make a suggestion for you specifically, and this might apply to other people, but your neighborhood is a fairly affluent neighborhood, which means that there's a lot of people with spare time and money for hobbies. And being able to just go down the street to participate makes it convenient for people in your neighborhood. So what I would suggest for you is set up, just pick an even a weeknight, even, Tuesday or Thursday or whatever, and just say, hey, I have this really, put a picture of your track on there and say, you would have to decide in advance if you want to, try to get kids to come or if you're targeting adults, but probably you want adults because the idea is to get them involved in our club. So just say, are you a car guy? Come race miniature cars of your, of whatever your favorite car is that you can't afford. Some of the guys in the neighborhood probably do have some of the cars.
They do have the real car, so why should you bother going for the small toy?
But it's not quite that affluent. It's not like people are driving around with, everybody's driving around Porsches and Maseratis and shit. But some guys might have a Mustang and whatever. But post them on your, bulletin boards or mailboxes or, I don't know.
Yeah, there's an HOA page. So, I mean,
an HOA, perfect HOA page. Just say, hey, I'm over here. We're going to have this night, pull your barbecue out front and, just say, just do a race day.
Who does it?
If you have a hobby town, like put a flyer up there near the RC stuff, because you're trying to get the RC guys that are priced out of the hobby to come down to this level. You get a lot of those guys. And then
HO guys as well, same thing.
Yeah, HO guys. We've got a couple of HO guys that join our club too. And then here's a trick I do is I have a Facebook marketplace search set up for slot cars. Whenever I see a slot car ad get posted, and message that person and say, hey, I'm not interested in your product, but did you know there's a club in the area in case because some of these guys have more stuff and they didn't realize that we were still racing in the area. So
that's a good point.
Good ideas too. Yeah. So people will buy a set because they're like, ooh, that's cool. I want to do that. And then they don't find people to race with. So they lose interest.
Or they bought a big set for their kids, 3 years ago and now they're selling it. And you're like, hey, we're out here. We stop by, free racing.
Come race, race with the other.
I'm not sure what your HOAs are like, but I would not put anything on my HOA page. That's a good show. Those guys would be all over me like a rat.
They'll shut you down for having that in your garage.
Yeah,
not approved.
I guess that might be a risk.
But what I did when I first built my track was obviously I was racing elsewhere. I was doing a lot of commercial racing. I started looking at all the guys who were racing with me at the commercial racing and seeing who might be interested in what I was going to do at home. And I just started inviting those guys around. And at first I had to provide them with cars. And quickly they started buying their own cars. And we developed quite a good nucleus of people for a while. The pandemic, of course, paid to a lot of that. But initially it was very successful.
Also, some good ideas came from Electric Dreams video with Stefan Farr Jones. I think when he first started his club, he had a bunch of really good ideas that got started. Like if people have 4 cars that are all the same that they can show up and race with, they're more likely to come back again the next time you have one. But if they get blown off the track, they're 12 laps down, they're less likely to come back that first few times.
Right.
So are you struggling, Russ, to get people attend your races?
No, I'm part of the IMSA club. Greg's in it. There's, we've got probably Greg, 14 members, but active racers, we've probably got
10.
Yeah, 8, 10.
Yeah.
And you guys have a schedule?
And race night, it'll be 8 or 9 or 10 guys. Sometimes it'll be 11. But yeah.
Have everything scheduled for extended period, 6 months, a year out, or something like that, and post it.
We do 2 months of forward scheduling. Basically, we schedule a series, so that's usually 2 months worth of racing, and then but we don't. There are. I would have to talk to the guys to see if they want me to do it, but I mean, obviously, I could post on our Facebook page, the dates and locations and stuff. We prefer to give the locations out privately rather than post the location.
Yeah, absolutely.
But I've done various kind of just Facebook pages and I've even paid for advertising for various things, and it's not especially effective unless you can really dump a lot of money into getting tens of thousands of ads out there.
Yeah.
I like Jeremy's idea of setting up a marketplace search, a local marketplace search to see if people are selling, and then say, hey, are you selling because you never liked it, or are you selling because you got bored with not having people to race? And I used to do that on Craigslist, but so many people click the little box that say, don't contact me for any other reason other than to buy my shit.
Right.
Yeah.
So, I kind of am hesitant to do that in general. And that's why I suggest, word of mouth is really great, but you got to get some mouths first in order for them to spread the word.
Yeah.
And,
Well, I'm just thinking, my thought, Greg, was it would, to me, a perfect for what we do and how we do it. I'm thinking 11 or 12 guys would be nice.
For the races that
and maybe, and where we run 4-minute heats at my house, 3 of them, then, maybe we cut it down a little bit on the time to try to stay within that same time frame. So
with the duration of from beginning to end of your race, with 12 guys, how much time are you going to be at your
probably
spending at your place?
3 hours, Greg?
At least, yeah. If we had 12 guys and we did our normal race scheduling, we open the doors at 6 for practicing and tuning and whatever. The racing generally starts at 7, and with 12 guys, if we're on the ball, we can get it done by 10. Yeah. But when it's 11 guys, it's a little bit, easier to get done before 10, and with 10 or 9 guys, we can be done by 9:30 or so. But yeah, with 12 guys, you'd have to be on the ball to be done by 10. And I'm usually the guy who's hitting the hammer on things to get shit, because I'm the one who wants to go home soonest. Everybody else is like, yeah, I'll stay out until midnight. No, not me. So,
and I'm asking also because we're kind of, I'm part of. I've been involved with the Stephen Far Jones's Far Out Club for the past year and a half or so now, and we are swelling. We are averaging over 20.
Wow.
Yeah, 20
it's also a race format thing. Like I said earlier, the reason we take 3 hours to do, 10 or 11 guys worth of racing is because we do King of the Hill, which is, 10 heats. We'll say 10 guys. That's 10 heats. We do IROC, that's 10 heats. And we do 3 rotations of series. That's another, 30 heats, right? So we got 50 heats that we're trying to cram in, and we normally race 2-minute heats, 1 minute, and then a short pause, and then another minute. So that adds up quick when you add up the pauses between minutes and then the time between heats and everything. But I don't know how far out races. Maybe it's 1 full rotation of everybody who's there. That wouldn't take nearly as much time as
2 races and 1 full rotation of the people, and then based on a number of attendees, they'll fluctuate between 3-minute to 4-minute heats.
Yeah. So if you have 25 guys, that's 50 heats of 3 or 4 minutes. Yeah. So it's about the same. So your very large club takes about the same amount of time as our much smaller club, but that's because we try to cram in a whole lot more racing for the guys that are here in that amount of time. So if you get a big club, then your format is going to be different. Like the slot at Nationals is going to have 72 people.
Yeah.
And each person is not going to get a whole lot of race time unless they start at the bottom and work their way up. But it's still going to take.
That's not going to happen either, because the format doesn't really allow that.
Yeah.
You get maybe 1 extra race if you're good enough to get right into the top of the top of the pile.
And that that's they have no other option.
You're not going to get a lot of racing when there's that many people.
Well, the one good thing about the Far Out Club is that it's 8 or 10 tracks roughly, give or take.
Yeah.
And the schedule is set the beginning, even before the beginning of the year for the whole year, including every single class they're going to run. So the continuity is there, and we definitely don't have that in Northern California, because we go to one track and you run stock gears, you go to another track, you run open gears, you run this, you can't run this wheel and that. I mean, far out to dictatorship, but that can be a good thing because it's
definitely a dictatorship.
Goes, and it's cut and dried for the year. Everybody knows what's going to happen for the whole year.
Yeah. And it's been a dictatorship for like 20 years. So, you know, they kind of know what they're doing by now. Well,
Yeah,
they
if the
know,
dictatorship
put it
is
this
good,
way,
that
they
works
know
great.
what works for their membership.
Absolutely. Yep.
Because it's not everybody is enamored with the way that Far Out run things. And those guys have disappeared over the years. You know, they've come along and they've either taken a look at this and said, it's not for me, or they've behaved in such a way that they've been approached and asked not to return. So you know, they've been as picky with their members as they've been with their classes over the years, and that's part of the success of that club.
I would be one of the people that doesn't agree with a lot of things they do, and I might not participate if I lived in that area, but it works for them.
Oh yeah, sure, it works great for them. Yeah,
I have no problem with it. So.
No, me neither.
Well, there's some ideas for us, Russ.
Yeah. Appreciate it.
All right. I think next on my list was Jeremy, and then we'll get to Dewan.
Hey, thanks. June 11th, we had a race. Let me see if I can share my screen here. Okay, you should see a track here with some guys standing around it.
Yep, 4-lane routed wood.
Yep, 4-lane routed wood. So we had, I believe, 9 people show up, and this is what the track looks like. Now, if it will let me flip through pictures. Our first race of the day. This is first, second, third. Previously, we never really had any like display things, and I just quickly came up with this. It's kind of boring. This used to be our Ninco Classics vintage races, but then that stupid fly with the inline came out, screwed it, and all of a sudden everybody's buying that car, and it's over for that class. And then we also had a Fly Classics division, which I found funny because everybody's racing flies already. This was the first, second, and third place in that division. We then raced Slotted Classics, and this is my favorite class because it's box stock. The only thing you can do is change the tire, and we have the most variety now. I mean, you never know who's going to win on any given day. Like this is the first time the GT40's won. The McLaren usually wins, and then the Matra is what I'm driving recently, and it's doing very well. This is back to what used to be a stock class, and it was a Trans Am, Scale Electric Trans Am. So, you know, everybody's going to be racing this stupid car. So this became the dominant car, and nobody beats these. This is our NASCAR class, which, interesting, it used to be a box stock class, and I started dominating in it. They changed the rules to allow it unlimited, and I took 4th place in this with my box stock car versus guys who upgraded all their parts and everything. So that was a fun time. But I'm not going to spend $80 on a class that I hate to drive. I'm just going to keep driving box stock. GT, these are NSR, I believe. These are the hot cars in the NSR.
In the middle.
Yeah, and then in the middle is a slotted. But here's the thing: this guy is like our Jim Rose. He's like the guy who wins every week when you show up. So he could drive your car, beat you, and then you're like, okay, thanks. So this doesn't really prove anything. But what I hate is like a new guy shows up to the club and goes, oh, what's that slotted car? And I always warn him, like, whatever Russ is driving, don't follow him because you're not going to have the same results. I promise you. And it's more times than not, it happens that way. And this was they call it like a modified sports prototype, which you can drive any kind of sports prototype. This guy didn't have one, so he drove his NSR and he won first place. And so that was just kind of weird to me. And I believe that is it. Yeah, that's the track. We race, let's see, our format, we have 4 lanes. I've kind of got this down to a science where we can get in. All the racers go through one time, 3-minute heats, and it takes about 40 minutes per race. So we start at noon and we race till 6 p.m., I believe, is what we did. And then as a test, we did, maybe they didn't. So these are our tests. We're trying to see what the rules are for right now, what's that brand?
Thunderslot.
Thunderslot, yeah. This guy painted his paint because he can't see where his car is, so nobody else is going to do that. But we're trying to experiment with some Thunderslot rules. And right now, the only thing you can do is change the tires. So this is first, second,
Why?
third.
Why you change the tires?
I don't know. This is
Why?
I didn't. I vote for nothing. I just want everything box stock. These guys in this
me.
club do this, and then this is NSR.
NSR.
You can pick anything you want, but everybody's kind of gone to these.
NSR and Scale Auto.
Yeah, there is a the scale auto. So those are the funny thing is that this is a test too, but there's only 4 cars that raced. I was the 4th person. I didn't get podium finish on any of these classes this day. It was my worst day of racing ever. But the good news is I'm no longer using that controller. I blame it on the controller.
Which controller was that?
I'm not going to name names because we're on a very popular show here.
It's the Jeremy Corbett controller.
It was just insane. How do I stop sharing? Greg, can you stop me sharing?
I get it.
Oh, it's up here. Okay, there it is.
In that very first photo, there was a King Cobra on the end of the third place thing. What the heck was that, and where did that come from?
Okay, so originally this is kind of a Ninko Classics. You can only have an inline with it had to be an inline motor. So he got MMRC, and that's underneath there is like a Sebring chassis, I think.
Oh, okay.
He's got, but the problem was the MRRC motor was illegal, so you had to use like a 14K thin can. And I don't know what he's got. I give up on this class. So I voted to stop this class. It doesn't work anymore. Go back to Ninko Classics and let's be cool. But nobody will. Anyway, good day of racing. If you're ever in Iowa, please stop by. But why would you be in Iowa?
So
Jeremy, it looks like you lowered the median age significantly with that group.
Yeah. Yeah. When I came as a young guy, I was not supposed to win. And when I started winning, things went sideways real quick. So,
we would be in Iowa because we were trying to get out of Nebraska. That would be why.
Well, I can't blame you. Get out of Nebraska as soon as you can.
So that was one night of racing, all those classes?
That's a Sunday. We race all those classes, and we start, like I said, we start at noon, and then the bonus classes went to like 6 o'clock. But I've got how many what?
How many guys?
We had 9 guys there this time, but usually it's like 10 to 12.
Oh, better for Iowa. So how many times a month do you guys race?
Once a month.
Okay,
But
then it makes sense.
We race once a month, and then the other club is a scratch built club where you have to build your own chassis. They race like 2 weeks, and then we do the ready runs every 2 weeks. So it's like, if you really want to race, you can race every 2 weeks as long as you don't mind scratch building.
It's the same track, or you have different tracks?
No, we have 4.5. I'm going to say we could have 5 tracks, but we have 4 tracks for sure.
Is the scratch built class the ones that use silicone coated sponge?
That would be the one. Yes, that's the one where whatever that's
I
called.
don't know how I know that, but I just know that.
I know you know that. And I got bad news for your guy. He did not win with your car. I'm sorry. You gave him too much power.
He
Jim built a car for a guy. I
power.
believe you. I believe you. But it was like watching I don't know how to explain it, but like he would just touch the trigger and his car would be gone. And then as soon as he got to a corner, he'd let off and touch it again, and like a gun, it'd be gone, and he'd wipe out. And I was like, I don't know if it's his controller, his racing style, but I was like, dude, you've got way too much power in this car. Like, ease it up a little.
Yeah, that sounds
He
like
needs a choke. He needs a choke.
Yeah, he needs to choke something.
Sensitivity is way.
But then,
too
if you're gonna use a choke, why do you need such a powerful motor?
Right. I don't remember what motor was in it. Was it a 21.5?
You can bypass the choke down the straightaway. Which car was it? You remember?
The Ford red, white, and blue one.
It's got a 21.4 NSR long can in it.
Yeah. Well, I don't know how it was geared.
It's got lots of power.
Yeah. I thought he should ease off of it a little because these are really short tracks. I mean,
yeah, I have to choke that
maybe your
motor
track
quite a
would
bit.
be great, but
Do you know what kind of control?
Even on the commercial track, I have to choke that motor.
Yeah. So I don't know what to tell him. He's one of the guys I tried to help and tell him, but he didn't want to listen to me. So I'm like, okay, go.
Do you know what kind of controller he has? Does it have?
He has like something from his HO racing days, and I don't know what it is, but it's like a hair trigger. So
that makes sense.
Yeah, I don't know, but it's a good time. We always have fun, and like I said, we used to be mostly stock classes, but now we're mostly modified, and I'd like to blame my controller for my losses, not my bad driving.
Yeah,
Are
he
you gonna
wants,
get a new
wants a
controller?
scratch built car now.
Yeah. Good luck.
I don't do that stuff. Dennis could do that. If you want to build a car, Dennis, I got a customer for you.
Dennis ain't doing that
I've
anymore.
I've just been replying to Facebook messages this morning saying, sorry guys, I'm not building anymore.
Yeah, I was gonna say Dennis turned me down. He better not accept your business.
Did I turn you down?
Yeah,
probably.
you turned me down. You said I'm taking a break. It's up to your
He's
health
going to
problems,
show
and I
up
was
with
like,
a.
okay.
He's going to
It's
show
just
up with a Euro
my
Sport
fingers
car.
are getting that bad that I don't do much of it.
Yeah,
anymore.
don't worry about it. It's okay.
It's going to melt the silicone off
Jeremy-
the phone.
Jeremy,
Yeah.
are you gonna get a new controller?
What I did was I took my old controller apart. I have a DS, the DS1, and the brake wire is just stupid on it. It's like it's really flimsy, and whenever you pull the trigger, the wire bends and flexes, and it eventually breaks. So what I've done is I've upgraded it. I've replaced it with almost like braid for my brake wire, and then a solid plug. And I'm like, if this breaks, I'm throwing the whole thing in the garbage. I don't care. So I'm going back to that one for now. And then when their DS4 comes out, I'm going to try that one. For some reason, I just get along well with however they have their trigger, and the expensive controller I bought just wasn't cutting it.
DS are comfortable controllers. A lot of the
Yeah,
guys use.
it's cheap and it works. Fine.
Alrighty, what you got, Dewan?
Oh, we had a far out club this past Saturday, and was over at Eddie Shore's place. Real nice track. He did a live stream. I don't know if anybody caught it, but I think it's still posted as you can actually go to it on Facebook and look at the live stream. About 2 hours per, close to 2 hours per race.
Yes.
Yeah, so we were doing. We had the Revo slot, the new Revo slot division with the was it GT2s? No, GT.
The little Revo slot cars.
Yeah, the little Revos with the Alphas.
Yeah, the group twos.
Classics.
Yeah, group twos. Yeah, there we go.
Group twos.
Yeah, and that was the first race, and then the second race, that's where I got kind of goofed up. We were to race flies, and for whatever reason, I grabbed all my Nincos. I bought 3 Nincos with me. I don't know what the heck I was thinking, but I got them with the wrong class of cars, so I had to use the loaners, which in fact turned out to be not so bad. Here's have the race here results. So the first race, Revos, I was using my little Alpha and everything, and I just had a really bad time on that yellow lane. I mean, I had a 10 laps behind, just about well, not quite 10 laps behind, but I was really performing bad in that yellow lane. That's the border lane. But I did good with that in the next race. But nonetheless, I didn't finish last again. That's which is always good for me, anyway. And but I actually really liked it. It was nice. His track is really nice, enjoyable. That was the first race. And where's my mouse? Okay. And then the second race again was the flies, and I brought the wrong cars, so I used the loaner cars, and I did even better. The loaner cars are really tuned nicely, so that's actually an advantage over using my own cars. But yeah, so the yellow lane didn't bother me nearly as much when the loaner cars did with the other cars. We had first race, we had 22 races, but I think 2 people had to cancel at the last minute, so we only ended up with 20 racers. The second race, we had 19. So I don't feel
You
so
managed to beat Steven too.
bad. yeah, he actually that's yep.
There's
So,
just a few places ahead.
Yep. And Frank was in that. He was having some troubles too with his cars, so he finished middle of the pack in both races. Yeah, but those, and yeah, we got some really good drivers. That's all I gotta say. We got a lot of good drivers in this club. That I mean, in my opinion, they're good drivers because And I think I'm improving. It just because what I was typically doing was just staying in. That was my whole thing. I wasn't going as fast as everyone else, but I was staying in, which is the first step, and then I can get better with the speed and all that as I get more and more experience. So, and this weekend we're going to be. He just had called an impromptu race, and we're going to be at his track. Stephen Farr Jones's track in Glendale, and it's going to be our team race. It's a 3-hour team race, which is pretty nice. And it looks like as of about 10 minutes ago, it's got a nice little call that we're bringing one of the guys that moved up here, one of the long-term members that hasn't really participated, Michael Smalley, is supposed to be coming down with me from Vegas. So that's going to be nice.
He was my teammate at an Enduro quite a few years ago.
Oh, wow. Okay, cool. Yeah, he's supposed to be a very, very good driver.
Yeah, the other teammate was Vic Elford. You may have heard of him.
That's a long time back, because now you're talking about the race at the Peterson Museum.
Yeah, that's a long time ago.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
2006, I think.
Yeah, well, yeah, because that's where Eddie got his track from. Is it? Yeah, right after the race, he acquired the track.
Oh no, he had acquired the track ahead of time. It was just that instead of delivering it, because Scott built his track, and instead of delivering it direct to Eddie, he delivered it to the Peterson because of the timing, and then they moved it from there to Eddie's. So that's how it worked.
Hey,
Yeah.
that's really interesting, the way that corner goes over the straightaway. That's pretty cool.
Yep.
Mini pinched king.
It's called a pinched king. Yep.
Yep.
There are some of those in full size, in the full 155-foot 8-lane versions, where the dead man corner, which is that corner, is over the straightaway like that. Yeah. It's a nice little track to drive. It's interesting though that you have to actually micro brake for the banking. You can't punch it right through.
Yeah.
Some of the slower classes you can do it on the outer lanes, but generally it's always safer to micro blip for the bank.
And there's a duplicate of that track up here in one of the hobby shops in Northern California.
Oh. Okay.
Bob Scott built basically built the same track.
You still have hobby shops in Northern California?
Yeah, a couple.
That's nice. Yeah. We don't have any down here anymore.
Electric Dreams is a hobby shop, sort of.
Where? Electric Dreams?
Sort of.
You couldn't buy a helicopter there if you wanted to.
No, we've got 2 pretty good ones up here, actually.
Yeah, that's nice. Yeah, we had 3 or 4 at one point down in Orange County, but they're all gone now.
Well, for my part, we raced on plastic this past Monday, and I spent a lot of time on my car previous week to get it to perform better. Since it was performing badly on wood, I can't really say for sure if it's going to perform good on wood until this coming Monday when we're back on a wood track. But I figured I'd go ahead and show people what I did. This is the BMW body and chassis of the Scalextric BTCC series cars, and that's what we're currently running.
Sorry, Greg, sorry, may I ask, is that rubber in the chassis and the body just from running?
Yeah.
Yep. Yeah, it's urethane, so it does dust off a bit.
Okay, wow.
I've cleaned it a couple of times, so yeah, and some of it's coming up off the track too. But these cars are toys, right? So they design them so that the body and the chassis are held together nicely with no gaps or anything like that, which is not conducive to body float. So in order to get this car to perform better, I had to clip off these little tabs that were on the body, that were on the chassis, and corresponding tabs on the body, where basically they would kind of lock into each other. So I had to eliminate those from both the body and the chassis. I also had to, and I didn't get a good picture of this, but the LED, the surface mounted LEDs on the headlight unit actually hits the plastic can of the headlight on the body. So while you're putting it together, you have to kind of angle it in. And of course, that keeps the front end from moving as well. So, I can clip all the tabs I want to, but the LEDs on the panel were trapped in the can. So basically I cut a little bit of plastic off the bottom of the can so that the LEDs could move vertically in that little channel. And all of the screws, the screw holes for the body screws were so tight in the holes that there was no slip through at all. They were basically threaded through the hole. The hole had threads in it from the screws. So basically I had to open up the body mounting holes by, however much. I took a drill bit that was just too big for the existing hole and ran it through there.
Yeah,
so
1/8 of an inch is the optimal, I think, for those.
Yeah, I think it's bigger now. No, it actually might have been a 1/8 inch hole, but a drill bit. But yeah, all those things pretty much gave me the body float. And I wasn't actually going for float so much, but when the screws were in, like even if the screws were loose, because of the way the screws were threaded into both the mounting post and the body, twisted the chassis. Right, screw them all in tight, and the chassis was twisted. You could unscrew any of the 3 screws however much you wanted to, and the chassis was still twisted a little bit. And the only way to eliminate that twist was to open up those holes. So that did that trick, and then I threw some lead way in the back to help promote sliding and hopefully get rid of some chatter. And this, of course, was after I did the brand new tires and glued and trued the tires on. And the only thing that I'm not able to do, because these are pressed on wheels, is true the front tires. I'm not going to wrangle off those wheels and potentially make it even worse.
You can true the fronts on the car.
What's that?
I can true the fronts while they're on the car.
How do you do it?
I take a Dremel. I fit an axle in a Dremel, and then I fit a wheel and tire to that axle. And then I run a tire against the tire that's in the Dremel against a tire that's on the car.
And then what? Just hold.
Okay, so the chassis is now holding the axle spinning, and then I take the opposite tire and apply the abrasive board.
Okay.
So do it with a nail file or something.
Yeah.
I guess that's better than nothing.
Yeah, it actually works pretty well.
Yeah.
Greg, think of this as an opportunity for the GNS Tire Truer Part 2.
Yeah, no.
Just do it, Greg.
There's no machine that can do that. I do it with the car upside down. Sometimes the body shell's on. It's trapped between my thighs. It's not an easy thing. It's a bit of a setup with one hand operating the Dremel and the other hand doing the tire truing on the opposite side. But yeah, it can be done.
If you have a tire raiser, or if you have an Area 3 or any one of those tire machines, you turn it around so that the sanding plate's away from you, and you take your chassis in your left hand and you press it up against the pulley that's on the motor, and that spins it up. And then in your right hand you hold your abrasive, your nail file or whatever it is, and you carefully true the edges of the tire, and there you go.
So you're using the motor of the razor to do what Wayne was doing with.
Correct. You use the motor of the razor and that little aluminum pulley that's on it just to spin the tire up, and then you do it. And that spins the same tire that you're truing, right?
Okay. Yeah.
Hey, so Greg, I got another one for you.
The tire tire you're truing is basically between the pulley on
the abrasive and the drum on the motor. Yeah.
All right. So another thing that I would do is, the little slot that the lights fit in.
Yeah. Here.
Yeah. I would cut that all the way down and move the lights all the way down so they wouldn't even touch the buckets. It still shines through a little bit. And then, of course, if it's legal, I would cut the interior out of the body and I would glue it to the top of the motor. See those tabs you have on the back there that hold the rear bushings in the other way?
Oh, okay.
Those ones.
Cut those off, glue the bushings in, and then glue that interior to the top of the motor. Then the body floats. It's a little lighter. And who's your daddy? Greg's up front.
Well, it did perform a lot better, and I did glue in the bushings. I did add some more glue to the motor, so the motor is nice and secure. The rear axle is nice and secure. Of course, I oiled everything up, and after all the things that I did, the body float was good enough for me. I mean, I don't like a lot of body float to begin with. I'm not sure that, I mean, what I already did was skirting the line of legality, because we basically have
and you're not pushing it enough.
Our rule is basically like you can do light sanding to enable body float for most things, but yeah, I think I'm fine.
Yeah, I mean, those rules basically maybe made sense before Scalatrix came up with this kind of way of locking the body to the chassis with those tabs. So I think, I mean, the thing is that life is too short to.
There was a rule there was a rule that allowed trimming the chassis to allow body float, but then guys would come with like a 1/4-inch gap all around the body and the chassis. It's like, what the fuck are you doing?
We had that problem too, so we had to introduce credit card thickness. It can't be more than a credit card.
That's a good one. Yep.
Yeah, but also like once you remove a bit of you remove like 1 millimeter or whatever from the chassis. I mean, even if you are gonna cut even more, it doesn't really help, promote more body flow. So doesn't really matter. I mean, how much you're gonna cut. So the other thing that you want to check is if the right main basically that is on top of the motor is interfering with the bottom of the.
Was basically the top of the interior is riding the ferrite man. And I said at the beginning of last night's or Monday's night's race, I said, well, we'll see how this performs, but if it doesn't improve significantly, then I'm gonna add some wire and put the ferrite man down on the side, and maybe sand those rails a little bit so that it's not.
You could always bend the whole thing backwards so that the ferrite man is near the gear. You've got enough wire at the front of that, so you bend it all towards the back.
This will be
no, but that will be a problem. Yeah, I'm already kind of wondering whether the wires that go from the motor to the rear lights board, if they are already too close to the.
Yeah, they look a little bad. They normally go underneath the axle.
To remove that piece in the interior tray that holds the rear axle bushes down.
The angle of the picture makes the wires look closer than they are, and maybe, but.
That piece is actually manufactured to be able to be taken out. It's on 2 little studs in the center.
Oh, yeah.
You can just pull it out without cutting anything. So in case you can put it back.
Mine's not coming out.
Yeah.
Well, you have to,
wiggle and twist and make it have it. It'll come.
Anyway,
so basically, I'm not asking for tuning advice. I ended up at the end of the night. I didn't even see how I did, where I ended up on the standings. I don't know. Maybe Russ remembers, but I basically, the car was performing so much better, and a couple of the other guys who also had the BMW were having trouble. I said, okay, everybody you guys with that same car, come over at the end of the race, and I'll show you what I did. And I basically just kind of went through all this stuff with them to show them what I did to make the car perform better. And it really did perform a whole lot better. After all. I'm sure it would perform a teeny little bit better with the other things that you guys are suggesting. So we'll see what those guys do next week. But, like I said, next week we're going to be on wood. So we'll find out if this stuff did the trick or if it was just the difference between plastic and wood that made the difference. We'll see.
Anyway, your rear tires look horrible, man. You need to fine tune that. I'm being a bit of a Chris now with my brakes, but they look horrible, man.
They're not perfectly polished.
What are they? Are they urethane or are they?
Yeah, they're all gauge. Yeah.
All gauge. Okay, so then you're not going to ever get the surface that you get on rubber anyway.
Yeah. I did a nice true job using my machine. And then I basically gave them the final polish / stickiness treatment with some isopropyl.
Mhm.
So yeah, that's it for me. We got 5 more minutes. Anybody got anything else they want to talk about? Ask about?
I have a quick question for tuning. If anybody knows, you know how Ninco wheels, front wheels are very thin, I think they're maybe 7 millimeters wide, and
Narrow,
then
yeah.
they're very narrow, and then slotted are much wider, 10 millimeters wide. If you were having if you're putting together a car and you wanted the front wheels to just touch the track for stability, would you want those front wheels narrow or would you want them wide? Which is better for overall performance? Because they don't have to do much other than keep the car from tipping.
Yeah, I mean, my approach is I don't care how wide the tires are, because what I do is I treat them and taper them. So such a way that I have like the inner diameter, the inner side of the tire diameter is smaller than the outside.
So you taper them when you're truing them into a V, so it's just like a razor's edge hitting the center?
Not in the center, on the outer edge.
Oh, the outside, so like a pyramid. Okay, kind of like the base of a, well, no, that wouldn't make sense.
It's basically a cone. Yeah, it's like a conical with a cone going towards the center of the car.
So do you do that to reduce the contact patch or to create some sort of camber?
No, it's just to reduce the contact.
No camber. It's just, So I'm reducing to bare minimum the contact patch, but also using the widest part of the tires to give stability.
Okay.
And then I also coat the tires with the
nail
CA
polish
glue.
Or CA.
No, I hate any CA glue.
Okay.
And so basically, I do this on the razor by hand. I mean, I basically put the front axle on the razor, and then I go with the plate for truing. I put the 90 degrees with my hand. I already have I've done many. So
I need to see one of these tires of yours then, when you get a chance.
You want to see?
Maybe next week.
Yeah, I mean, I can bring it up, but basically what I do is that I make sure that I do as perfect as possible the outer edge of the tire.
Yeah.
Until I get to the size that I want, and then move the board such a way that I will start basically truing more the internal part without messing around too much the external edge of the tire. And then polishing and stuff. I can show you. That's what I do. I mean, I can basically then I'm gonna look for some pictures and then I can.
Yeah, I wouldn't leave a sharp edge at the outer edge of the tire. I'd try to get maybe a 16th to 3/32 of a flat surface on the outside edge, because I want to round the outer edge ever so slightly, and then have a very small flat surface, and then have the diameter fade away as it goes towards the inside of the tire. You have to check the rules of where you're racing, because some rules, like at Electric Dreams, don't allow that. So you've got to be a little careful.
Yeah, I knew the back tires I wanted wider because I wanted more contact, but I couldn't figure out if I wanted.
No, you want minimum contact.
Okay.
Minimum contact, hard as possible. Although Chris Walker had a little while back was talking about the fact that they're starting to keep the front tires wide and make them sticky, because they found on some circuits and some cars that they were a bit more stable when they had some resistance at the front to the way the car turns. But personally, I still like to take away any friction on the front tire.
I remember talking about that, and that's why it kind of threw me off. Go ahead, Greg.
Because Chris's thing was with independent front wheels, though.
Yeah. Sure. Well,
I mean, sure. Yeah, but that's not.
It's a whole other rabbit hole.
Anytime you can go independent, you go independent. That's no brainer.
All right, I think that's a good stopping. Oh, wait, Gio's got a picture.
Oh yeah. Okay, so it's
there you go.
On the outside, it's thicker, and then it tapers in. Okay.
Yeah, sure. And then it's probably the outside 16th or 3/32 is pretty much flat.
Okay, perfect. Thank you, Gio.
Mine's not, so I just keep the taper. So basically, it's really riding on this edge.
Yep, I see that, and it's just tapered just so slightly towards the inside. Thank you.
Yeah.
All right, perfect example. And on that note, I'm going to hit the end stream. Until next week.
And I'm going to say Jerry, bye. We'll see you all next week. Thank you, Greg.
Take care, Dennis.
Yeah, appreciate it all.